Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please stand and join us in our Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve tonight's agenda as listed? Mrs. Nickerson, can I get a second? Mrs. Fishman, any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you, it's unanimous. And our Vice President, Ms. Wood, is out of town tonight, so Lori, if you're listening, she's in warm weather, so we're not going to say nice things about her. At this point, I'll turn it over to our superintendent. We have a number of presentations tonight, so we'll start with those.
Our first of three, we have a spotlight on Paul V. Moore High School, so if I could have Mr. Jeffrey King, principal. The floor is yours.
Test.
The first presentation we're going to have this evening is on our Red Hawk program. Our Red Hawk program was a new program that we brought to the high school this year. This is actually a program I've tried working on since the day I was able to assume this position. Luckily this year, we were able to actually get it going. I like to believe that we are in a education business, and I wouldn't be doing my service if I can give an intern an opportunity to work on her presentation skills. Ms. Faulkner? Ms. Faulkner, she's our intern working out of the high school. She's an elementary teacher out of Brewerton. She has done a phenomenal job for us. She's done a great job in taking the lead and trying to assume as many leadership roles as an intern can. She's working alongside Ms. DiBianco, one of our district administrators, and making sure our students have a program to help them become successful when they transition in.
So as you said, my name is Carrie Faulkner. I'm the administrative intern at the high school. And this is Mrs. DiBianco, and we are going to talk about the Red Hawk program.
So, many of you are wondering, what is the Red Hawk program? The goal of this program was to provide students with additional supports and some interventions to make their transition into high school much easier, to facilitate that. Obviously, a lot of students coming from the middle school, it can be overwhelming. It's a big building, a lot of new teachers, sometimes larger classes. So we wanted to provide academic support, emotional support. Although I'm an administrator, I also have master's in social work, so I am there for a counseling component as well. We provided some special student events. Later on in this presentation, we can show you some pictures of some events we've gone on, but we were able to go to the Wizard of Oz and some other great events that we will show you. And also promoting positive relationships between home and school. So calling parents more often, inviting them in for different things in the high school, which we, again, will show you in this presentation. Who is in the Red Hawk program? Students that are recommended by their school counselors. So there's a predetermined list of criteria, which, you know, at any point we can share privately. Some of the things that we do look at are some, you know, emotional issues and family issues, but we don't want to get too deeply into those. Obviously, it's a public forum. and we like to keep confidentiality for these students. But some of these students have failed a number of subjects in the past, so we have extra supports with teacher assistants that are very caring and teachers that are caring, many of our who are in the audience. We have library staff that helps, administrators. We just have a lot of support systems in place. And we know that these students are facing a number of challenges that affect their attendance and getting to school and their performance. So it's really important that we have those supports in place. These classes are also a tiny bit smaller, so maximum of 20 students in a class, and our advisement is only 15, so it's great.
So the first piece that we talked about was the academic support. What we call are the Red Hawk blocks, and those are, there is a total of 4 teachers that are Red Hawk block teachers, and during that time, any students enrolled in the program are in the classes all together. So there's more than one class where they see familiar faces and they move from one class to the next. During advisement, they are with one of the Red Hawk block teachers. Right now it's Mr. Quanis, and they're also with Mrs. DiBianco. Monthly, the whole team has been meeting, so we meet and collaborate on teaching practices, what we should know socially about the students, best practices, how do we want to help them. So that's the time to collaborate and meet. There's also technology lessons where the students every Wednesday have been going to the library to learn a lot about like Google and how to move forward with the Chromebooks, so they're getting that extra lesson. And we just implemented peer tutors for the students who so far are still struggling with some subjects. So we were able to work with Mrs. King on each day of the week, a different peer tutors coming into advisement to help the students. Also, this month we also started the secondary education SUNY Oswego tutors. Those are practicum students. They're putting in their time with classroom teachers, but also going to advisement and helping the kids that are in the Red Hawk program. So these are the Red Hawk block teachers. English 9 is Mrs. Gozigan, Global History 9 is Mrs. Lacey, Environmental Science is Mr. Quanis, and Reading and Writing is Mrs. Shantz. So we did interview some of the kids, so they'd like to tell you what they like about having the Red Hawk blocks.
Advisement time with Mrs. DiBianco is fun and enjoyable because she helps us with homework and helps us get involved with clubs that she thinks we'd enjoy and reminds us of school events that most of us are involved with.
Rennie also comes a lot to advisement and helps us out. We have student peer support. We have other students that sometimes come in and support our students as well. We are lucky to have almost like a family team there where we just really support one another, and the students get extra. You know, we push them a little bit, I have to say. So if we see that their grades are going down or the attendance is going down, we try to make those extra phone calls. You know, I'm constantly emailing teachers, or we're just asking what can we do during that advisement to make sure that they catch up. And these are students that, have struggled in the past. So sometimes when you look at data or look at statistics, you might say, oh, it only looks like they went up a couple points, or these grades are still really low. But I can tell you that everyone's really trying to put in 100% to encourage these students and get them to see the importance of academics and working together and working hard.
I do have to say that I really appreciate all these volunteers that are listed, because we put it out there for each Red Hawks student to have a teacher or school mentor, and that list of all the teachers that volunteered, and they meet with them, say 20 minutes a week, just to have a conversation and to make that connection.
I like having Mrs. Strope as my mentor because she takes her time on the first block on A-days to help me with my homework for Mr. Fox, and she's really nice.
I want to go back to social emotional, because I feel like this is a huge component of the program that I just wanted to pinpoint. We do have club advisors, obviously, that come down and talk to our students about various ways to stay involved at school and in the community. So our students who maybe have never done anything before are now involved in clubs and various activities. I really have to thank Chris Sanema a lot. We go to the library every single week. And not only do we do technology lessons, but we're talking about bullying, we're talking about organization, we're talking about, we're bringing in Farnham, which is a drug and alcohol agency, to talk about safe decisions and drugs and alcohol. And I think we're just offering so many different opportunities. So again, I just wanted to pinpoint that.
I don't know how many of you are aware, but it's approximately 9 to 10 years ago, State Ed actually tried to figure out how to enforce social and emotional connectedness to schools, but then it sort of got dropped off of some of the legislation. They were purposely trying to make it so schools had social and emotional connections within their schools. I don't know exactly the why part, but I can tell you, since I've been here, this is definitely something that we have tried to accomplish without the state telling us we have to. Because if a student is unable to connect with school, is not able to walk through the school with a proper mind frame, they're not going to be eager to learn. So if we can build more of a connectedness where there are students that are struggling, may not feel accepted, there's a good chance they're going to become more productive in society, let alone in our school.
Also, the students are able to go to room 1307, which is also where they have their advisement time. So I'll turn it back over to Mrs. DiBianco, because they spend the time with her.
So this kind of started impromptu. There was a lot of students that after the Red Hawk group was done, we're talking about the lunchroom, and it's loud and it's noisy, and some people love it and thrive on it, and some students just love to, have a smaller space to talk. So it started with just maybe 3 students, 5 students. Today we had almost 20 students that came down, and we're open all 4 blocks of lunch. And sometimes we just listen to them talk together and make new friends. Other times, they come in and they're really upset, and we talk about whatever is going on in their life or crises. Or there's times that I've been able to give great referrals during that time as well to outside agencies. But I think it's just a safe, welcoming space, and they just are able to come and have lunch there and feel comfortable, and they really enjoy it.
Personally, I like the lunchroom in the Red Hawk program because it helps relieve stress when it gets stressful in the lunchroom, and then also because you get to meet people you wouldn't normally talk to when you're out in the actual high school.
So we also try to incorporate, our goal is to really make a stronger connection with the students in school. So we've tried to add a lot of special student events for them. That's included some field trips to the Camp Hollis ropes course in Syracuse Stage are a couple examples. We're working on right now going to the MOST to make the connection to what they're studying in environmental science, and possibly going to City BOCES just so they have another taste of what's a possibility their 11th grade year. Also, we had a paint night for the students, and there's pictures of it later. There was also the students went on a virtual field trip in the classroom in their social studies class. So these are some pictures of the students at Camp Hollis doing the ropes course. It's the 14 low to the ground elements. I'm sure you've heard of them, where it's a lot of team building. And the students were really put out of their element, and we're really proud of how much they did that, because a lot of times they don't put themselves out there in this way, and they felt comfortable with each other. It was a great experience for them.
I think the ropes course, a lot of students, there's so much team building, and it was done early on, so I wasn't sure really how much they would grow, and by the end of the day, I mean, they were so excited and all talking about it for days after. Next was paint night. I think students really enjoyed that, and again, we had a couple students from inside the building that just were so excited about it that we invited them in as well. Ms. Stats, took her time and welcomed our students, and she had them pick out a picture in the back of the room, and then they just had the freedom to create whatever they would like, and we took pictures of them with their pictures, and they brought them home. We displayed some in the classroom. They had a really a great night, and we appreciate her time for that as well.
So this is the virtual field trip that they took in Global History 9. It was daily life in ancient Rome. So they were able to see a Rome gallery right in their classroom, and they learned about the artifacts that the ancient Romans used. And it was a great experience because they were able to see the actual artifacts, which normally not many of us are able to take a trip to Rome.
I was able to go into Mrs. Lacey's class. She invited us in. It was great, to see the students interact live. The next is fostering relationships between home and school, which we all know is so important. We invited Red Hawk parents during open house to our room and had refreshments, and were able to talk to them. We try to do our best to have communication between teachers, school counselors, administrators, calls home. There's been letters home, especially Ms. Faulkner's been doing extra attempts to, let's try to make sure that parents know what these grades are, because some of them are not checking school tool as often, or maybe they don't have internet. So she's been, making copies of things and sending them home, and we do as many phone calls as we can to make those connections, and sometimes just positive calls, things that are going really well. We offered a couple parent workshops, stress around the holidays and how to talk to your teenage child. We ask guidance for extra help too, so if we see that they've missed a couple days in school, then we say, could you please meet with them one-on-one, so that they're all hearing the same message of the importance. Mr. Villeneuve is sending out letters of growth, and he's our Dean of Students, for those of you who don't know, so that's really helpful too, so parents can see the positive growth as well.
Next is some of the success stories. So you can look at this chart and see that this is an example of one of the students. You can see the number of absences has decreased, and the plus in green is the amount of growth in all of their GPA averages. And then you can see at the bottom that the student is involved in drama club, the change, and battle of the books. Okay, and this is another student. You could see the drastic change in the number of absences, and then you could see the growth in all of the GPAs for English, math, science, and social studies. And like I've said before, where a student still is struggling, that's why we've now incorporated having the peer tutors and the SUNY Oswego tutors to help them.
So going forward, Our plans for the future is that we would like to continue the program for the group of incoming 9th graders so that they are the new Red Hawks, and our 9th graders become 10th grade Red Hawks, can also interact with those students as well and tell them how well the program's been working. We want to maintain the program for current students into 10th grade, and we will continue to receive recommendations from the school counselors, especially at the middle school level, for additional students to fill any of our vacant spots for the program.
So we just wanted to list too all of the clubs and activities that the students have become involved with, and we really like to think that the Red Hawk program encouraging this help them to become more involved in school. And this is the overall achievement. The number of students out of 14 that have improved attendance or just 1 or 2 absences is 8 out of 14. And the rest of the numbers are the number of students out of 14 that are passing their classes.
So again, just in summary, we'd like to improve the transition from 9th grade to high school to the following types of additional supports: continue the academic support, the social emotional support, special students events such as field trips and speakers, and continue to foster the positive relationship between home and then school. Any questions?
More of just a statement. Besides just helping the limited amount of students, the 14 students, it's not just isolated to the 14 students. This is generational change. It's not isolated. So you're helping them because anybody can rattle off the statistics, and it shows that students that truly struggle to the degree and have these kind of at-risk, situations, it's their parents probably struggled. It could have, not always, but could have struggled. So the fact that I see the teachers are sitting in the audience right now, that these kids have jumped like 25, 30 points in academics, that's huge. So this is generational change. Great job.
So in total, 14 are in the current freshman Red Hawk program? Okay. So where it says class of 20, I saw somewhere in here, student class size of 20. We don't have, that's the max you would want in it.
That's correct.
Okay. And these folks, these 14 students, on every day are with each other during every day, Monday through Friday. Is that a fair?
Some of them have classes that they're not together, but they have to have at least 2 classes with Red Hawk teachers that were had been part of the program.
So with the class size of 14, do you think that is, I'm trying to think how to word this, but is it the fact that it's the first year? Like, I would think that there are a way greater number of students that would benefit from this. So is it a cost, or is it just the first year of the rollout that resulted in only 14?
Well, I think sometimes it starts a tiny bit bigger, or sometimes you have a student that moves out of district, or we had a couple students that moved in district, so it might fluctuate by 2 or 3, but I think we definitely could grow, but we don't want it so large that we can't give them that individual attention, because these are students that do need quite a bit of support.
And we're looking to fill those vacant spots for that cohort going into 10th grade, because we know there are more that could use it.
And even as this year goes on, we're finding students that would be a good fit. So we're starting slowly by saying, oh, why don't you come to our advisement? Or why don't you, come to this event, and seeing if they would be a good fit as well.
And the only other thing, I just want to thank you for, specifically in here, for the example of giving a specific student and to see the change. Sometimes I feel like we get so caught up in the averages and the massive numbers that we forget about the individual. So thanks for sharing individual stories. That helps a lot.
Yeah, and I'm not going to let you go yet. I've always talked since I've been up here about measurement, right? Different programs and different measurements, and I'm really pleased to see the numbers of programs, whether it's a plus or a minus, and nothing could speak as far as my consideration is the improvement from 8th to 9th grade, and that's really, because if you don't engage them in the 8th and 9th by 11th, does the measurement turn into a dropout, right? Does it turn into a failure? Does it, what does it turn into? And anytime you can have a positive measurement for the programs that you're doing, I think is a big plus. And I think you should be really proud of it.
My final comment is, and I've been on this for years and years, and I know people get sick of me hearing it, but it's not extremely different when I use in my own mind the term, and everybody's going to cringe, but the term tracking. These kids are comfortable with like students. I sit here as a board member and a parent, and I truly believe we have similar frustrations with C students sitting with A students. And I know the state doesn't recognize that, and we've had discussion amongst the board over the years, but I still believe there should be real dialogue amongst putting people with like students. I think there'd be far greater success long term. And again, I might be in the minority on that, but the reason I bring it up again is somebody over the weekend said, I've never heard you talk about that. I said, well, make darn sure, because that's how I truly believe. And I think this is a snippet of what I'm kind of referring to. So thank you.
So how does this tracking, as you say, how does it's okay at this stage, but it's not okay at the middle school and elementary levels? I mean,
well, let's be first clear. Like, what we're seeing here is a lot of at-risk behaviors that they wouldn't even be coming to school. We'd be spending 85 to 100 grand each on programs outside of school. But if you really think about it, I mean, we differentiate. I'm a big proponent to say, bottom line is this: we do track. How do you think we don't track? I mean, if I look and I tap some kids in the hallway and say, are you ever in the class with these kids? They'll say no. And I talk to them. Reagan, board member, can say there are certain kids that are never in their higher level classes. So to a degree, it does it itself. If you look in some SUPA courses, you look in AP courses, to me, I think that in a way, that's the system tracking itself, because you never have the struggling kids that are going to be in those courses. So any high school that says, you know, they don't track, we all, whether we want to admit it or not, we do, just on the nature of the rigor of those courses. Now on other ones that we may not, let's say like global, everybody takes global, but even with that, then you've got your AP course, your AP global. So in a way, we really do. So when we look at the list of students, there are some students that will go through Quality More and never be in a classroom with struggling students. So to that degree, I totally hear what you're saying, Tim.
Yeah, and I just go back to the old days time, and this is long before your time. And this is not I just want to make sure the board understand where I come from. I guess I'm going to simplify it. I'll probably get crucified for it, but I'll say it anyway. I think kids would be more successful, students in Central Square or in Lodi, California, I think they'd be more successful if they were always with like students. And I don't even know if that's possible, but I do know in 1974 through 1978, that's how it was. I mean, that's how we were taught. You were in, and I told the story one time, and I'll tell it one last time, and I promise never to bring it up again. I was with the stupid kids. I was known as a stupid student. So I asked my father, how do I get with the smart kids? He said, read more and work harder. And guess what? It works.
And that's what I think, like back then we had A1, A2, A3. We just call them different now. Now we have AP biology instead of the regular biology class. It's not called A1, A2, A3. But I do hear what you're saying. I definitely.
Last comment. Thank you for that. I know it's only 14 students. If we could get that number up significantly, I think we'd be headed down a very, very good path. So if that could be 30 next year or 60, or I know we got a lot of them. I have no doubt the need is far greater than 14. I have no doubt.
Great job.
Thank you.
Excellent job, ladies. Thank you. While we switch over to our next presentation, Mr. Calabruffo brought up a point of generational type change.
Before you get started, who confirmed that they knew I was a stupid kid back then?
I think it was Brian Freer. For those of you that are new to the board, that might not have some of the background, speaking of generational change and trying to implement that, I presented to our faculty back in November our whole child education program that I brought to the school from the day I walked in here 5 years ago. One of those major components is our backpack program. I realize that right now, the impact we're having is minimal, other than I know we have some students showing up so they can get that food. I'm also aware that those are the same students that are probably going to be living more locally. So even if they're not having the great success that we're hoping for, they're still showing up. We are not seeing them in the office with the discipline issues. But maybe in another 10 to 15 years, those will be the same students that we're speaking to their children, where their overall school experience, they cannot say, I had great success, but they can at least look back and say, they care about you. Listen to them. They will give you some guidance. They will support you. Our next program is a little bit on the other side of what you would consider our Red Hawk students. Our Red Hawk students are, they need a little bit more of that support with that social emotional connection. They need a little bit more support with their academics. To a more advanced type program with our Cayuga program. You know, and this will be an open invitation. For those of you that are new to the board, I'm here every morning by about 7 o'clock. If any of you would like to come in, have a cup of coffee, I'll be more than happy to walk you through every program I've brought to this school in the last 5 years and the why. And also so you can learn a little bit about me. Because otherwise, I am the first guy that says, none of this is about me. You'll see me purposely not tag my name with anything, because it's not. It's about our students. Mrs. O'Malley is going to present our Cayuga Advantage program.
Thank you. For those of you who might not know me, my name is Jennifer O'Malley. I'm an assistant principal here at Paul V. Moore High School. I want to thank the Board of Education, the district office, my administrative team, the teachers and students that we work with every single day here at the high school to make this possible. So thank you for letting us highlight this tonight. Tonight I'm going to speak about the Cayuga Advantage program here at Paul V. Moore High School. In the 2016-2017 school year, the Board of Education shared an interest in having a 2-year program here at the high school in which high school students could leave with a 2-year associate's degree. Our administrative team took this very seriously and we started immediately looking into this. What could we do right now to make this happen much quicker? In the fall of 2017, we started to implement ideas of down at the middle school, what could we do to help fast track this a little bit more? We had the biology class start along with the algebra. During the winter, we explored options through CCC. We also looked at OCC. We visited Union Springs High School to see what program they have in place. In the spring of 2017, interested teachers applied for course approval, and by the end of that summer, we had 13 additional teachers who were approved to teach CCC classes. Our goals for 2017 and 2018 were built upon the previous year's goals. So we were able to review associate degree programs and requirements that they had. We looked at where could we possibly fit these classes and what did we offer currently that would help fulfill that program requirement. So we looked at the City BOCE's distance learning program that we have in place. We looked at the CCC Community College online classes that we already have in place, and any additional teacher application approvals that we would need in order to fulfill those requirements. In addition, we reviewed current course options to help fulfill the requirements. We looked at AP classes, our SUPA classes, OCC, CCC, and SUNY Oswego. Looking at everything that we already have in place and any additional classes that we would have to fulfill, by the end of 4 years, the students would have a 2-year degree from CCC in liberal arts and sciences, humanities, and social sciences, which would be their concentration. So what is the Cayuga Advantage? This is a partnership between our high school and Cayuga Community College. And this basically is a program where local school districts are awarded college credit taught right here at the high school. This benefits our students because we are not asking them to leave the campus like some other schools are requiring. We have our own teachers teaching these classes, and the cost is very, very minimal to no cost at all for our students. What to consider with Cayuga? Our students are entitled to all rights and privileges that any CCC student would have at the college campus. And they are held to the same expectations, including attendance requirements and academic progress standards. So we watch our students as closely as the students that are on campus in Fulton. Who is eligible to enroll? There are two different types of students that we're looking at. Students who are going to be coming into this program as an 8th grader, as a 9th grader would be their first year into the program, and those students would have to receive special documentation from parents in order to enroll in these classes. Students who reach their 16th birthday before December 1st, who wish to enroll, can do so simply talking to their guidance counselor. Some people may ask, how do they differ? These are taught right here in the high school. If you talk to some local districts, they do offer programs that are similar to this. However, our students are having to leave campus to go to that campus, which increases our costs, transportation, materials that they might need, all fall back on the district. Housing it here allows us to be able to do whatever we want with our students, still allow our students to do extracurricular activities, and be a community member here at Central Square. These courses, they cover material at the college level. They're more challenging, they're academically rigorous, and they require greater independence. So these students, they're going to have to think about doing work outside of school in addition to just what they're doing here during their day at Paul B. Moore. A big concern for many is how are these credits going to transfer to other colleges? In many cases, all of these credits will transfer to any local SUNY college. That's significant savings for our students. The only kind of place where we're going to start to look at whether or not these credits will transfer completely is a private institution. They have their own rules, they have their own requirements. Many times they will transfer, but they will transfer as elective credits versus an English credit per se.
Can I ask you a question on that? I don't, you want me to save it till the end or ask you?
You can ask right now.
So I'm just wondering on that. So in many cases, the answer is yes. Cayuga Advantage is done in other school districts. Do we have any stats as far as the percentage of students that take the class, then they actually get credit? Like, I'm just wondering rough ideas.
Well, actually, this program, we would be the first high school in our county to fulfill this program. So we don't have any comparable stats at this point. I just talked to Sarah Yaw at CCC this morning, and we would be the absolute first high school to do this in the county. So they do offer a lot of CCC classes for students to take, but not a complete degree program.
I just have one follow-up question. I assume that the courses are similar to SUPA. SUPA, you don't get an associate's degree at the end of, but being Syracuse University, maybe there's a difference in terms of transferring, but do we have an understanding with respect to the SUPA courses, how they've transferred, and whether that would be comparable with the Cayuga Community College courses?
Knowing what I've spoken with Sarah Yaw, who's the program coordinator at CCC, she said we've looked at the breakdown of classes of what we offer here, and she said any of those classes could fit into the program requirements for a 2-year degree. So what we are already offering here, that's why we're able to get such a head start on this so quickly, because we're offering so many high school classes here that are college level and credit bearing.
And if I could jump in, obviously the SUPA courses, because I've gone to that presentation with Connie, they're going to pretty much transfer everywhere.
Because it's a Syracuse transcript, and I guess that's what I'm wondering.
Not just because it's Syracuse. Literally, I think it was only like 3% of the kids that take SUPA even attend Syracuse University.
No, I know, but that's what I'm kind of getting to. I understand that Cayuga Community College will recognize, the 11th or 12th grade course that's being taken and offered by a high school teacher here, they'll recognize it to fulfill their requirements for an associate's degree. But do the students actually get a transcript from Cayuga?
Yes,
So,
they do.
okay.
Yes, and
So
Yeah.
it would be similar in that
Yes.
regard. So they would be going to, say, Utica College, and they would hand
Yes.
over a transcript from
Yep.
Cayuga. Okay.
and
But it may not be recognized at a private institution, correct?
well, it depends what type of credit you are asking to receive. So in many cases at a private university, you would be receiving elective credit as opposed to like an English 103.
Correct.
So you're still gaining from this program.
Okay.
You're just not gaining what that private university is asking.
And this doesn't replace our AP courses.
It replaces nothing.
No.
This is all
This is
in addition
additional to.
Yep. They're going to overlap each other a lot. And I'll show you in a couple slides how many courses we currently offer that will help in this program.
Yes, we get the transcript, so it's possible a student could have a Cayuga transcript, their typical high school transcript, and then SUPA, Syracuse University. So it is possible a student could have 3. One thing we do have to be careful of is, as a high school, we cannot guarantee that every credit will transfer over. So we do have to go with positive intentions of what we are told and what we read. Yeah.
And parents have to be well aware of that, because if they get an associate's or however many credits, and they go to apply, and now they're going to, Dartmouth or whatever school, and all of a sudden they're not. We just want to make sure we communicate appropriately.
Right. For those of you that don't know me, on occasion I have a stutter. So when I start speaking in Morse code, just kind of give me one of these. I take a breath. That's why sometimes you'll see me pause in odd spots in sentences. As long as it doesn't come out as to-he, I'm still doing well. And if I had any sort of memory to remember what the heck I was going to say, it'd be even better. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. McCarthy. When we are looking at any college courses, the one thing I can at least come back to a parent and be more than comfortable to stamp guarantee on is, even if it does not transfer as that full degree program or specific to that course, I at least can look at them and say, you're able to save quite a bit of money, even if it counts as electives. So we are still ahead of the game from that financial aspect. And I can tell you that Cayuga, we took that right off of their website, so everyone has the same information if they logged in to see Cayuga Advantage to read about it.
Yeah, and Tim, I took SUPA courses, and they weren't elective. They transferred right over as core classes. So, yeah.
It's all dependent, and then
Than this. So I just want to be clear on that.
So is it the difference because it's a community college as opposed to Syracuse University? I mean, is that the
I can only anecdotally assume that.
Okay.
That's what I would have assumed.
Well, I can talk about it, because my middle son is a graduate, has an associate degree from Cayuga Community College, and then went on to get his bachelor's degree, was accepted at Niagara University as a junior, and then my daughter went to OCC, got her associates, and then was accepted at Mercy College just outside of New York City. So I think anytime, and it's what every parent that's going to put their child through college is going to understand, especially when they're going to go to more than one, right, to try and save money, is that it's a negotiation as far as what they're going to accept, what they're not, what they're going to charge, what they're going to not. And I think any time that you can knock out a half a semester or a semester or a year, there's a definite advantage monetarily.
But I think also that's a conversation that our counselors are having and need to
Absolutely.
continue to have, because, and again, it goes back to like what Tim had said, like with tracking. You have to say, okay, what is your end goal? If your end goal is Syracuse University, is it Cornell, is it Clarkson, which I know we have the students that can get into those schools. I know that. Whether people want to say we don't, we haven't had that. We've got great kids. But the question is, if a student is just looking to get an associate degree at a 2-year college, I would be the first one to say, don't take the SUPA class. But if you are looking to go to those, you're going to save thousands of dollars. Jeff, I had you run the numbers. Do you remember offhand what it was? Yeah. $3,700 if you know that you're going to go into this. I'll use Cameron Lallier as an example. She's going to know if I take a SUPA course, I know that my goal is to go to Syracuse University. I'm going to save almost $4,000 by taking that here. Now, would we have students that are going to just look to go to Cayuga? And not just. That's a great pathway.
It's a great pathway. It's a great college.
100%. But I would also say to them, don't spend the money to take the SUPA course if that's not the pathway that you're looking to do. It's financial. So.
But that same thing happens even between colleges. I got a 2-year degree at one college, transferred to another, and I ended up retaking the same class. No joke, exact same class. Because they wouldn't give me full credit for it until I got in the class, and the teacher's like, just don't show up again until the final. I don't want to see you. Okay? Because I sat there in class and could answer all the questions because I'd already just done it the semester before. You know what I mean? So you're going to have that.
It's a negotiation. It always is. But you know, that's where the counseling department comes into it to understand what you're trying to get accomplished, where you're attending quality more. It's the bottom line.
I think it's also important that this district has not been sitting on their thumbs either. We do have current situations where there's kids walking out of here with 24, 30 college credits, thanks in part to the current staff. So we do currently have a good track for our students, and I don't want that to be missed, that there's a ton of, if you want to take advantage of it, then there's the student that doesn't want to affect their GPA, so they don't want to take an AP course because it's too hard. That's not a good, I can't control that. I can only control what I control, and that's my family. But I think that's a mistake sometimes that some of our students do miss, that it's tougher, more rigorous. I might not get a 99. Well, you know what? You'd be more prepared for college, though. So I think that's an aside, but I think that's important to recognize.
True. College and Career Readiness Committee, we have like 140 members, and the SU admissions people, Lemoyne admissions people, and SUNY Oswego have all said the same thing. They don't just look at GPA. They look at your strength of schedule. Did you have multiple study halls? Were you, why, you know, so that's huge.
I'd like to piggyback one thing on Andy's comment, the board president's comment. You said in our county they don't have a track record. Mm-hmm. Is there a track record outside the county that we can actually access the data and do a little data mining there?
I can certainly look in Onondaga County and get that to you. Just, you know, I wanted to compare within our own and just see where we're at. But I'd be happy to look at that and get that back to you.
Yeah, that would be of value. It would
sure.
Answer some questions that we probably have.
Absolutely.
That we're meeting up right now.
All right, so let's talk about money, right? We want to save our students as much money as we can and save our parents money. So here's the situation. We have Cayuga that charges $63 per credit hour when a student is enrolled in a course. Because they are using our educational space without the need to pay for an instructor, they essentially pay rent to us to offset the cost of the student enrolling in the course. So their tuition is equivalent to the amount of rent being paid, which is how we end up allowing our students to take it at virtually no cost whatsoever. We have an entire 9th grade class currently who is enrolled in Cayuga 101, a class that we started this year. Not a single student is paying for this course. Those are 9th grade students who will be leaving this high school with at least 3 credits, whether they are college bound, military bound, career bound, whatever their future may hold, they're at least leaving with 3 credits. What an accomplishment for a 9th grade student to have gone through that, experience what a college class is like at their level, right? And then leave with something. So, for example, this fall, there was a bill, let's say, for $94,000 approximately. This included all of the enrollment fees, the tuition fees, etc. We will receive a rent check for $96,000. As you can see, it basically is equivalent to each other. Some years will be a little bit higher, some years will be a little bit lower, but it will always end up kind of being equal to each other. These students are students that we need to think about, you know, their futures. I have 2 girls of my own. I would love for a program to be in place for my girls like this when they get to high school. That's going to save me and I'll tell you 1 second because I wrote it down on here. For 12 credits at Cayuga Community College, it's $2,542 for 12 credits. Over the 4 semesters, that's $10,168 that our students here at PV Moore will save. Our parents will save. That is like, if you were to think about just the community college world, that's a lot of money. Transferring it to a private university and then having those credits transfer over there is even more of a savings because their credits are more per class. So think about how much these students are really saving. It's a substantial amount of money, and I'm glad that we can offer as many courses as we can.
Is the $63 like a discounted rate for high school students, or okay? So even just going from 12th grade to going to Cayuga, they'd be paying a lot more.
So you're aware on that SUPA course, the SUPA cost? We charge, not technically us ourselves, but the SUPA course is $339 to take it here at Paul V. Moore. If you were to take that same course at Syracuse, it's $814 per credit hour. Per credit hour. $339 total for our course here, $814 per credit hour there. 3 credits, yes. All right, so for us, $339 total, $814 per credit hour.
Yeah. No, yeah. So you're looking at 2,400 if you were to take it there, 339.
2,443.
Yeah.
$339 to take it here, total, so that's $113 per credit hour.
Which is all the more reason when we sent out that questionnaire to parents saying we have the opportunity, your child can take take psychology class through CCC. Here's the cost of this. You can also have them have the opportunity to take the SUPA psychology class that will be taught by Dr. Story, who's one of our school psychologists here. That now gives them the choice and goes back to what we talked about before with the pathways. And the great part about that is the fact that, again, it's the savings. The savings is huge. And to the district, we can make it so those kids don't have to even pay for that SUPA course because it's going to be done through distance learning. And all other schools around the county and other counties can then pay to have their kids in that, which then goes right back to our course.
Right, all we need is another school to join in. Basically, you can almost think of it as a consortium, and then we can generate revenue.
And the one thing that ties us all together is the counseling. You've got to make smart decisions before you make the decision. And there's got to be someone in the room that's going to help them make that decision. Whether that be the student or the parent, needs to be somebody here to help them make that decision based on what expectations are. I know that's hard to assume 3 years out. Nonetheless, it's an important factor.
This is what I was referring to earlier. These are some of our local high schools that do offer similar courses. They are offering currently 1 or more college-level credit-bearing Cayuga Community College classes. I would like to be the first to say that we are the first high school in the county to have a complete program. That is our goal for the end of the year. We are, very close to fulfilling that, and I'd be happy to update you towards the end of the year with where we're at as far as that goes. I'd like to also just highlight the current AP and college course, essentially catalog that we have here at Paul V. Moore. These are all the college classes that we offer our students. So, we have a tremendous amount of distance learning classes that we offer. We have classes through OCC, SUNY Oswego, SUPA, and AP. So that is a huge applause to our teachers here for offering these classes. Currently, the left-hand column here are classes that we are offering through CCC that are being taught right now here in our high school. The list on the right are classes that we are going to be initiating in the fall, as long as everything goes as planned. So what does this mean for students at Paul V. Moore? They graduate PVM with a 2-year degree. They save substantial amount of money for not only their parents but themselves. They're gaining a tremendous amount of transferable credits, whether they decide that 2 years is enough or they want to continue on to a 4-year college or university. And they engage in rigorous and challenging college programming.
And I want to just jump in real quick. There's something that I think like every of the board members need to understand and why I love this so much, and I'm sure that they do. But again, what this talks about right here, rigor and opportunities. Currently, right now at Paul V. Moore, at no one specific person's fault, when you're a senior, we have 57 of them that have at least 2 study halls. We have an additional on top of that 37 that have 3 or more study halls. And that doesn't even include the 78 kids that leave at 10:30 or 11 o'clock. That's over 65% of our senior class that's either in 2 or more study halls or non-existent. So that one figure that Chris Todd, the DS City BOCES, keeps talking about in the county, that it's by epidemic numbers of how many kids would go to 2 or 4-year colleges and then drop out. I'm not putting that on teachers. I'm not putting that on counselors. I'm not putting administration or teachers. I'm putting that on kids that have such a fluff senior year. Some are they're in the most rigorous course of their senior year because that's a stepping stone to the next level. But how many students are going home? And the board had said the longest time, and teachers have said it too in this high school. Tom, if we had a policy that said, given certain circumstances, we don't want to force people into certain things, but not allowing 2 or more study halls, that would put more kids in those classes that they should be getting those attributes, more kids in business, more kids in music, art, other electives that they could be taking, as opposed to just having the cushiest senior year and then all of a sudden be overwhelmed, whether it's at a community college or a higher level.
Absolutely.
I think we should absolutely have that discussion. I don't know if we have the right to make that policy or what, but we should, not tonight. Syracuse is on. No, I know we're not going to see that, but I think we absolutely should have that discussion. Because just this weekend, I had a conversation with a young man, and he is so bummed out that he allowed himself, and his family allowed him, to take as many study halls as he did. He's bored silly. He wished he didn't do it. That's on him and his family. That is not on our teachers or our counselors. That's on him. Because they tried to talk to this gentleman about taking additional classes. So I think we should have that discussion down there at some point, whenever.
No, I agree, Tim. In fact, when we won't delay your presentation much longer, sorry, but when we get to open forum, I do plan to bring it up, and I'm giving Mr. Colabufo a warning, because I think, the board, I have my personal opinions. I absolutely would support a policy on that, but I would want administration to basically ask the board, because they're the experts in education, so I'd love to know their opinion, but we need to know it quick, obviously, because we're already into planning for next year, right? So it impacts everything they're doing. So, well, about 15 minutes or so, and then we'll be talking about it.
Yeah, and I think any time, because sometimes you go to college to learn what you really want to do in life, right? You're exploring different classes and different things, but it is so expensive now, and the pressure is such where if you can back that cost and back that time out and take 3 or 4 courses, and then you go to a course and say, gosh, I really love this. This is fantastic. Well, there you go, right? You might want to pursue something down the road, but if you're sitting in study hall, what are you doing?
Or about the last presentation, when that artwork was phenomenal, maybe a kid saw something that they've got a talent from being in Mrs. Stats' art class that they'd say, wow, I never knew I had that ability to be able to do that.
Why don't you come to class?
Take that course.
Take that course.
Instead of a study hall, 80 minutes.
We're paying an awful lot of money to heat a place and pay a teacher. Let's sit in and you might enjoy it.
Works both ways, though. You could actually take a class, to pick one, CAD drawing, and go, absolutely not. And that would be an educational.
But at least you know.
Money well spent.
That's a value to that. Yeah. And it doesn't cost $4,000.
No, but it does later. You
Sure
figure
does.
out you don't want to be a CAD guy.
Yeah.
Or girl.
In closing, I would just, are you done? Or are we shutting you
I
off?
have one more
I'm
point
sorry.
I want to make.
I apologize.
It's okay.
I guess I closed for you, Jen.
I just want to make
Sorry about that.
one last point. Even if our students are not on the 2-year associate's degree track, every single student here can enroll in one of these classes or multiple classes and leave with 20, 30, 40 credits if the that's what works out. So nobody is being held back. This is offered to every single student here, and we're working with our school counselors to really push them into these classes. Our 9th graders are doing it this year. If our 9th graders can take Cayuga College or Cayuga 101, a college course, and be successful in that class, you're just talking about, tasting that success and wanting to continue with that. Here we go. This is a perfect program to get them started in.
Jen,
yes.
Jen, didn't we approve a 10th grade course for Cayuga?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, yep.
And it's also a statement to the teaching staff.
Absolutely.
That now they're teaching at that level and they're succeeding at that level with the students.
Absolutely.
That's a big deal right there, too. Right? That's value added.
It's huge.
I'll reiterate it one last time. I just don't want lost in the discussion. We have many staff sitting out there and at their homes right now that have really done an awesome job at getting kids prepared for college to date. A lot of kids have done very well on your backs and your knowledge and your commitment, so thank you.
Thank you.
So I love one more
ahead.
thing.
Yep,
I love what you said near the end, which is, pushing those that interact with the students to maybe talk about it in a different way. Because here, informally, I've talked to a number of students, not just my own kids, but obviously I started with them over the past months. And the predominant feeling is, when I ask them, for those that aren't enrolled in any of these credit-bearing courses, it's because they aren't sure if they're going to college. Like, they're not sure what those plans are. And whether it's intended or not, the prevailing message that's being heard by students is, if you're not sure, then take these non-credit-bearing courses. And to me, that is the biggest miss in the world, because how are they going to experience it and get a passion for what we're trying to develop, which is lifelong learning, if they don't understand that just because it's a college-bearing course doesn't mean it's scary and non-applicable. In fact, if anything, they're probably going to be more interested. So I love what you said, and we're going to talk, I'm sure, more tonight about the whole idea of how we can get that message through that department.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks. Great presentation.
Excellent work, Jen.
Do we have the big schedules we can look at? I want to see all the blocks, the times, and
Yeah, Mr. King, there's no pressure, but I will say I don't know that the board has been more interested in a presentation the whole year. We've been chomping at the bit since last April, so we are engaged and excited.
Well, speaking of those generational changes, unfortunately today I actually just left my grandmother's funeral to come back up to present. Speaking about generational change, that backpack program, what we've done here, I'm not going to lie, she instilled that in me. I remember coming home with my block of cheese. I'm not happy with it. She used to make me take it back. It was Velveeta. I liked Velveeta. And she'd always tell me, there's always someone worse off than you. We're in a people business. Our kids here are going to succeed because I'm determined for them to do it. If I can find a clicker, I'll have some success too. Scheduling. All right, any questions? You can see we have a pretty well-rounded committee. We added a couple students in January. Prior to that, we did not have students on there, partly from the aspect of students need to worry about student issues. They do not need to worry about adult issues. Our needs and feedback. Create a schedule that will allow AM and PM BOCES students to earn the same number of credits. If you recall, prior to this year, depending on if you're an AM or a PM student, you either earn 3.5 or 4 credits. For us to do that, we had to figure out a dead space for that transitioning of students to come and go. So they had equal hours at BOCES. Create a schedule that would allow advisement to be more utilized. Prior years, if you see on the bottom there, we had 2 dismissals, 2:15, and then again at 2:45. I said this when I presented in the past on this. In theory, that could be a good schedule. In practical application, it was a miss. We have a large area to cover for buses. I could see students, which was some of the feedback we received, they didn't want to sit on that 3 o'clock late ride if they stayed until 2:45 for that extra help. So we had to figure out something to try to get students to be maybe more efficient with their time as a positive way of looking at it, versus allowing them the opportunity to leave school earlier. Because when I would speak with my staff and even with the students, the staff and myself were on the same page of, no, the school day goes until 2:45. But if you ask the student, Reagan, what time does the school day go to? And this is a student that I'm not real worried about. She's going to be successful. For 17-18, review our current schedule to determine the effectiveness and determine need for any adjustments. Here's a timeline of what we have done and will be doing. Actually, I had a meeting yesterday morning with a gentleman to look at a hybrid schedule. The handout that I gave you with all the pretty colors on it, those are ideas of what we can do with a hybrid schedule. Because I can tell you that one of the few people that can actually look at this in an abstract sense has done an awesome job with it. Mrs. Strope. But I can tell you when I sit down and look at it, I have sketch pads all over the place. I know I'm missing something. So I brought in a third person and had a meeting yesterday to learn more about that and to figure out how we can do it. I've done a great job on my own figuring out how we cannot. I need someone to tell me how we can. Progressing towards our goal, gathered insight, information, and feedback from multiple perspectives and stakeholders within the school community to assist the administration in making final decisions regarding the bell schedule. Minor adjustments have been made moving into the second semester. Feedback was needing a longer advisement, and we had to figure out a system for our Chromebook deployment. And like any programming in a school, we're going to monitor, review, share, and discuss. I'm going to share some of our feedback that we received. How could we improve the current PVM block schedule? Our highest response, which Mr. Martin, Mr. McCarthy, lends right to what you gentlemen were speaking of. Not allow a student to have more than one study hall. And then the second largest response, have a longer advisement time. For next year, I think advisement should stay every day, but be 5 to 10 minutes longer. We're not waiting until next year. We implement it moving into the second semester. And then we even have a why part. Staff was feeling that there was not enough time for students to get their work done or the assistance that they needed. What would be your preference for teaching classes? Large response, 1 block every other day, which is our current makeup on the 4-day cycle, ABCD.
Jeff,
yes, sir.
Quick clarification question. On the teacher survey, 75 or whatever out of 89, was that a, what do they call it, Survey Monkey or a...
we did it through a Google survey.
Were those confidential surveys? Were they?
No. Oh, anonymous?
Anonymous,
Yes.
anonymous.
I thought you meant
Confidential is the wrong
confidential,
word.
like I won't show you.
They were
Yeah,
anonymous.
yes, yes, sir. Yep. Student survey feedback, for the most part, relatively equal amongst the grade levels. The feedback I received from some of the seniors were, Mr. King, thank you, but it doesn't really impact me. At least they were honest.
Students responded?
We had 392 or 492. Ms. Galvano looked that up for us. You'll see that I highlighted what the highest was, and one could assume that that is a positive thing that's highlighted. I can tell you, I want to get more into the why. We have almost 30%, the 29%, that say it does not. I think it's great that we have 71% say yes. So from a percentage standpoint, you could look at that as a win. Well, I'm looking at it from another aspect. We're at 29%. I want to learn the why. What do we need to do? Is it the student? Is it possible the student just doesn't like school? Okay, why? Is a student, maybe the student wants more college level courses. Maybe they want more of a different art courses. Are we missing their interest groups? Or as Mr. Calabufo states, are we missing something with the paths that they're interested in?
Was there a comment section in both the surveys, teacher survey, student survey, or were they just questions only?
No, there were comments in certain spots.
And were there any trends on the comments that we know of?
Not with the students, not where I can say we had 150 that stated this exact thing. I can tell you with the teacher survey, it was easier to pick up trends. 438.
438 students filled this out?
Yep.
Really?
Mr. King, if I can just play a little devil's advocate, because I hear what you're saying with that number, the 71 and 29.
Yep.
And then I'll be like Mr. McCarthy here for a second. I may get land-based into this one, but the assumption is that one, the student knows what their needs are, right? I think just honestly, students and adults too tend to respond on my wants, not so much my needs. Because to me, it's kind of like if I ask my kid, "Do you eat enough vegetables?" Absolutely.
Right.
It's not necessarily reality. So I'm just saying I don't read too much into that one. And I apologize because I don't think you got to the bottom part yet. So
Oh, that's okay. Well, I looked at it more from the aspect of, are we missing something? I agree. Yes, maybe it could be the perspective of the person taking the survey, which could very well be it. Absolutely.
Yeah, it could be the student that takes 3 study halls. It meets his needs. This is great.
Yeah, right.
Not necessarily what we're looking for, though.
Yeah. Right. I'm taking my English, my PE, my PIG, my Econ, and I'm out of here by 10 o'clock.
Mr. K, I just have a clarification. Study hall advisement. So people are taking 2 and 3 study halls with and still have the advisement?
Yes, ma'am. Advisement is a whole separate thing that everyone has every day.
How many did you take as a senior, Chris? No, you don't have to answer.
Sorry, Mr. King, before you leave that one. Yes, I'm just wondering, and again, it may not be known, but I'm just interested in the teacher feedback. A third of the teachers, for argument's sake, say that they want a longer advisement time because they don't have enough time to work with students. But then we only have 12.3% of students saying that they are even seeking to get help from a specific teacher.
I can tell you the way I interpret it, again, it could be based off of perspective, by all means, is that those 12% that are going, are they really struggling? And maybe that teacher needs to spend, say I'm still teaching health, I'm still back in my health classroom, the student isn't understanding something. Well, am I spending maybe 15 minutes with that one student trying to help them with that concept, but yet I still have 3 or 4 other students that are all on separate topics? So that's how I interpret it. Again, it could be more based off of the perspective and how I looked at it. Now, looking at from how you're seeing it, it doesn't seem to correlate. I think it's based more off of the...
Mr. King?
Yes, sir.
I think I can agree with you on that, just from my own experience with my daughter, who was struggling with a particular part of one of her AP classes, went to get help. The AP teacher also happens to teach a non-AP class. And because of the number of students that were in the room for advisement for that particular class, most of which were not AP students, okay, she couldn't get help for 3 days. She spent 3 days going back to the same teacher trying to get help, but she couldn't do it because there were so many other students that were struggling with a particular concept. That's going to happen, and I can see why a teacher would want more time to try to help more students. You know what I mean? Especially in that case.
Right, maybe every 1 minute can move me closer to helping out another 1 or 2 students.
Right, right.
Are we okay with this side? Do you feel advisement would be more beneficial if it were longer? 56.6% said yes, 43.4% said no. I can tell you my perspective. I think that 43.4% are still wishing that they had 2 dismissals. That's just my perspective. This is our schedule that we had started in the second semester. Second semester was January 29th. Yeah, January 29th. You'll see that the advisement is a little bit longer than we've had in that first semester. We also were able to flex some time in there to allow for our Chromebooks to be picked up, because you wouldn't give a plumber a tool and then tell them you cannot get to the tool. That would be a waste of a tool. So if you build in the time to get to the tool will get used. And then to return your learning tool at the end of the day.
This schedule started January 29th?
Yep, this semester, right now, sir.
A week ago, last Monday, a week ago today, right?
Yes. And just so you're aware, even though the advisement time grew a little bit in minutes, it still helps our BOCE students with transitions, so that did not negatively impact them in any way.
What was the advisement time in the first quarter, first semester?
We added 5 minutes. Yep, we were at 11:12.
So if I tomorrow anecdotally going around in the high school, which I'm not gonna because I'm out of town, so don't get nervous. But if I anecdotally went around and asked 40 teachers, what would they say about this versus, anecdotally, what would they say about this versus the first semester? And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I will.
That's okay. Ask them. We have several sitting out here.
Situational. Okay. Is that all that changed in first semester to second? Basically added 5?
5 minutes there, the Chromebook areas here in the
Chromebook pickup, okay.
And then we shorten each period because we have to, because contractually you only have X amount of periods to work with. So the periods shrunk slightly, minor adjustments. Nothing that you would consider major overhauls or changes. And actually we ran the bell schedule prior to the Chromebook deployment for a week to try to get people used to the new system prior to Chromebooks being deployed.
So two-part question. So I'm going to push back a little bit. That's strongly worded, but on the goal stated here, because so the board last April asked that something was put together to present in the January, February timeframe so that we could, whatever that recommendation was, have time to kind of vet it out and implement it for the next school year, for 18-19. So I don't see anything in here. You're not presenting a proposal for a change for next year. I'm just verifying that, right?
As of right now, the schedule ultimately we'd like to investigate more deeply hybrid scheduling. I was able to find a gentleman, which came as a referral from our scheduling committee. So that's why I met with him yesterday. But as of right now, one could consider that current Bell schedule, looking at adjustments with it, and then possibly looking at a hybrid schedule.
So with that, Jeff,
Because-
why don't you explain what, if you don't mind, I don't mean to jump on Andy, but so what I see, student sample schedule 1, student sample schedule 1, teacher schedule 1, teacher schedule 1. Help me. I am definitely not that bright, as I told you.
That's
I'm a
okay.
stupid kid, and I'm still a stupid guy. So,
There's certain ways to look at hybrid schedules.
okay,
Say it's on a three letter day rotation.
okay,
Maybe a teacher teaches 2 out of 3 blocks every first block. So that means if you did it in terms of a 4-letter day, which we currently have, it could be 3 out of every 4-letter days. Maybe they teach first block. When you look at a hybrid schedule, you also have to be looking at staffing issues, contractual issues, and constraints. It's not just as simple as, this is the schedule, we're running
Go to
with.
it.
Because there are several dominoes that may fall within that schedule. So when we're looking at a hybrid schedule, say I'm teaching English, all right? And we go to a hybrid schedule. Maybe on A days, I'm teaching blocks 1, 2, 4, and 7. Maybe on B day, it's also 1, 2, 4, and 7. But then when we get to C day, maybe it's 3, 5, and 6.
so these are hybrid examples.
Those
Is
are
that correct?
Those are examples. Yes. And also within that, if I'm teaching, say I'm teaching English 9 and English 10. All right? If I'm teaching English 9, I'm teaching that 1, 2, 4, and 7. A day, 1, 2, 4, and 7. B day, C day, 3, 5, and 6. Where's that opportunity for advisement? For me to see my English 10 students. What impact does it have contractually to still receive the same number of minutes for planning and factoring student lunches as well? So really, in the overall picture, there is no perfect schedule that every person, every student will love. I can tell you my schedule is just one big block of time. Because I personally, I don't work on truly bells. And from the time I get here until the time I leave. So that's why I need to rely more on my scheduling team that has done a wonderful job working together.
Yeah, and that's why, I mean, I had some students come down and say, you know, the past couple of weeks, Mr. Kalwoopa, are you trying to get rid of block? Absolutely not. And I want to make that perfectly clear. That was never an issue for me, nor other administrators to say we're going to kill the 80-minute block, because there are definitely teachers that do a wonderful job in planning that 80-minute block, and it's really conducive. Core classes especially, I mean, obviously you're going to get like material out, whether it's, let's say it's art, of course. I mean, that's, and again, but in anything. The issue was really more of the planning of the lessons. When we had students saying, and again, it's not a clean sweep across the board, and I'll be the first to say, and to say it clearly so I'm not lambasted on this, is that there's a difference between how some teachers plan and deliver an 80-minute instruction and then how others do. The more of the issue was when students were saying, and that it was seen through learning walks, or it just came to our attention from students bringing it to our attention, that there would be 20 to 30 minutes of instruction and then 40 to 50 minutes of kind of do what you want to do. That was in the minority of classrooms. The majority of classrooms, I truly believe, there's planning, there's lesson plans, there's looking at where we want to start from, where we want to go to. So what I don't want people to think is, oh my God, the 80-minute block, it needs to go because we have to be an extreme type thing, and that's not the case. What we've already started to do is just the use of instructional time. If it was 40 minutes and they were only teaching 10 or 15 and then the rest was just kind of whatever they wanted, it'd be the same situation. So there are teachers who I know, some in the audience right now, who use that 80 minutes effectively, and that's awesome. And I don't want people to think, oh my God, because some teachers aren't using the 80 minutes effectively, that we're going to throw the whole thing out. That is not the case. We don't need to say, well, the hybrid is the next big thing, so we need to look into doing that. That's not what originally this whole goal to have this scheduling committee was about. It was to look at what other places are doing, and then we have to come back and say what's best for us. So again, I want to stress that because it was never our desire to kill the 80-minute block.
Teacher B.
So a deliverable, so we're in February 2018, so the board can look for April, May, a presentation back of what you are recommending, what you want to go with.
I can absolutely give Mr. Calabufo an update or a presentation.
But would that be early enough to implement in 2018?
Honestly, I'm a pretty laid-back guy. As long as we can get the bells adjusted before the first day in September, we can work with that. Yeah, because really that comes down to calling Mr. Brissett, having him send one of his gentlemen over.
Jeff, with that question, when are schedules generally done? For example, for 8th graders coming into 9th grade in September, when are those generally completed?
Scheduling a student doesn't necessarily have anything to do with a bell schedule. The student will still be in their English courses, because whether they're in a 40-minute, an 80-minute, a 60-minute, flex block, a hybrid, it doesn't that doesn't necessarily impact the students. But they've actually, just so you're aware, middle school has started. Yep. We've started the high school as well. Yep. Scheduling is a long process, but the actual student schedules, not really a bell schedule determined.
So Andrew, what's the board looking for then? So we can kind of.
Well, so that's the thing. That's kind of where I'm struggling with is the intent. The goal was to have a presentation and ask tonight of the board of a recommendation for going forward. So, and again, speaking only for myself, because not everyone was on the board last April, but we were schedule agnostic. We weren't in favor of block. We weren't in favor of traditional hybrid anything. It was what is the recommendation. And so I guess my big question right now is the timeline that was presented tonight starts in October. What happened in April through September as far as the schedule goes? Like, I don't know how many times has the committee met.
Actually, those were the committee meetings because I last presented, I think it was April, May. So then we did not have meetings in June or the summer. September rolled in. Wanted to make sure the staff was getting acclimated to school, the school system, and the school day. So then we picked back up in October.
So if we look at the goals, right, review our current schedule to determine the effectiveness and determine if any needs adjustment. So that's the goal of the committee is laid out and presented to us. So we would probably want, right, April, May, determine any needs for adjustments, presented back. You want to talk about this in August to the board? No. Okay.
No.
I'd just like to clarify, on the previous board, I do believe there was a preference of one or the other. Not that that matters now, but I do believe there was some discussion around wanting to go one way or another, if I recollect correctly.
Oh, there may have been discussion. All I'm saying is that, at least for me, that yeah, there's no directive. This isn't my my gig. I'm not the scheduling expert. It was definitely to enlist that and get that feedback, though. And so I certainly don't think we're there yet. The question is, if we are scheduling in-person visits for other schools in March, does that allow enough time to come back with a hard not only the recommendation, but then the implementation of whatever schedule changes they would want for the coming school year? I don't have the answer to that. I don't.
Well, and we also received a wonderful tool with the Chromebooks. Back in last spring, Chromebooks were, we hoped that we're able to get them with the money. Now we have them. It's possible we would have had to have redone everything with whatever that schedule was then, so we can get those students deployed to the students and returned as well, which is a wonderful opportunity for our students. So that's also now, or as Mr. Patch said, that might be something we also have to look at as to make sure that the objective, that we're also meeting that need for our students as well.
We have some incredibly intelligent teachers, I know, that are sitting on that committee, but we also have some really intelligent students as well that can come in. The conversations with the students that met with you, myself, and Ms. Galvan, it was pretty amazing, some of the stuff that they were saying. A lot of it was very similar to what the teachers were saying and what they felt their day would look like, and it was amazing. A lot of it was exactly what I'm hearing that the teachers were saying, that Ms. Galvan had said that they said in the scheduling committee. So I think those voices definitely need to be heard, given the fact that we've got a student coming back from Syracuse University and College and Career Readiness Committee in February 12th saying, look, there were a lot of phenomenal things at Central Square, no doubt about it. Awesome. But then there were things that we didn't do that she's seeing that her other peers that we could do that. Whether it's how the schedules were set up and whatnot, even though we have a great thing going on here, it is important that we listen to our students that come back and say, there are other things too that we can do with the schedule that does really help us as well. So I think that's important that we listen to both voices, sets of voices, which I know that you're completely on board with.
No, actually, I had a wonderful dialogue with that young lady this weekend who was looking for a recommendation for a Fulbright scholarship.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at this this one page here, scheduling needs. Does the current schedule meet these three needs that are listed here, or no? And that is the city BOCES,
yes.
advisement
yes,
time, and the dismissal of 245.
Yes, sir.
So are we done then? I mean,
those were needs in the 16-17.
Do we have additional needs this year?
I just want to throw another monkey wrench in this whole thing. There's 10 minutes in any one of those schedules that we could use a whole lot better, especially in the high school. Chromebooks should just be handed to the students, signed out, guaranteed by the parents. Let them use it for homework, let them take it with them. You're going to have it in college. Folks, we're supposed to be preparing these kids to go out in the world.
Tim, to get back to your question, I'm not sure, but at this point, the schedule shows coming back in April, May to share schedule options for 2018-19. I'm not sure at this point we can place it any other.
Yeah, I guess if we're comfortable with a committee we put together, let me just try to summarize it from my perspective. Why wouldn't we take what that group said, provided it's honest, upfront, candid feedback of our executive team that we've put together, and come back and say, this is what this group recommends in April, April, May.
Yep.
I guess I'm missing. I respect the people on this committee. I'm assuming they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't know what the hell the scheduling are crazy to me. It's a maze to me. It's like, I mean, you got to be like. You got to be a genius to do it, I think, because it's all over the ballpark. So that would be my recommendation. Come back and say, because I have no preconceived, I don't care if it's 10-minute blocks. Have 80 10-minute blocks. I don't really care. What I want to make sure is our kids are getting educated, and so you guys, and I don't mean to be facetious, tell us what we should do. I do believe there was a preconceived notion, not from administration, but a couple board members on the last board had a preconceived notion of how they thought it should run. That's my personal opinion, and I truly believe it.
Agreed.
I don't know which one they. That was kind of like a. I don't know which one it was.
I mean, there are variables to look at in any district that we can't bury our heads in the sand. Part of it is student attendance and teacher attendance. And I'm not saying it's teacher attendance for like just taking sick days. It's conferences, it's the PD that they ask to go to that we approve in my learning plan. But it's also the fact that we have astronomical numbers of absentee with students, and we have a huge number of, we all know because we can't get teachers subs. That's an issue. You know, so when we have block, we just also have to acknowledge the fact that that is 80 minutes. If they're not there that day, or if students miss that day, it's different than a traditional 40 or a 50 or a 70. It's different. And
so Tom, you're not saying a block versus a 40-minute affects attendance. It affects what they're missing in a missed day, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
But it doesn't affect, a kid's not going to come more because they're 40-minute sections versus, but an absentee means more when they miss a day with the 80-minute blocks.
Sure. So let's say on one day of the 3 days that they have the teacher's absent that day. The next day, the student's absent that day. That's equivalent to what 4 periods that they would have had of getting that information. We cannot look at that because that is an issue. It's an issue that a lot of schools deal with. So, and again, as I said, I hope no one looks at this going, oh my God, is he making a case to get rid of block? No, I'm not. Not at all. If it comes to me, it comes down in its simplest form as to instruction. And that's whether it's 40 minutes or whether it's 80 minutes. But we do have to look at the other variables, and attendance plays a role.
And with our committee, are they aware of that's a fact? And I'm not trying to be facetious. Is that one of the things they're looking at? Is attendance missing 40-minute class versus 80-minute class?
I would consider that part of staffing.
Okay. Okay. So. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King.
Thank you.
And last but not least, because we still have food up here, if you're all wondering why we were eating, it was because we were evaluating Dave Bartholomew in the food service. Awesome job. Have a great night, no, just kidding. Dave Bartholomew, Amy Caitlin.
Good evening, everybody. For those that don't know me, and you are a relatively new board, I'm Dave Bartholomew. I've been your Director of Food Services here at this district for 12 years. I'm actually in my 29th year of doing this. Kind of interesting. And of course, Amy Catlin is our Assistant Director, been here 12 years also. And if you have any questions, Laura Baum over there is our Secretary. She's been here longer than both of us. Lots of experience. Just real quick about that Red Hawk student thing. Jeff, always talking. One of the things I used to do with the kids, and it occurred to me while you were speaking about that, was I used to do a lot more with the kids, getting their opinions by having direct contact with them. And as I get older, you know, and I don't know so much about what kids eat because I'm old now, and my kids are all grown up, so I can't look what they're doing. Jeff, I'd like to offer being part of that, if I could, and maybe come in with those kids and work with them and get their opinions. And you know, one of the things that occurred to me is those kids might need a reason to feel important, and that might make them feel important by having maybe a say over what the rest of the district might be looking at for some of the foods that we serve to them. So I'd like to be a part of that if I could. And we're having a little trouble with the slide, but we got an expert. Can I do what? I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. Look at that. Perfect. Okay, I guess the best way to start this, and I have, I don't know what I do with my paperwork. That's right. Oh, there it is where did it all begin? And I feel like I've been around as long as school lunch has. But really the story began back in 1946 when Harry S. Truman and everybody discovered that during World War II, our fighting forces were malnourished, or at least that's what they felt. So there was a fear that we weren't going to be the country we are today because of that. So they enacted the school lunch program in 1946. That's where it all really began. And the whole goal there was to nourish our kids so that they could go on to be soldiers. But today we're doing it so they can go on to be good, productive adults. Not a lot has changed over the years. They did install the breakfast program later in 1966. So if you could change the slide, Amy. Not a lot's happened over all those years. As you can see, again, 1949, the program came into being. In 1966, they brought in the school breakfast program. Not till 1975 did they bring in the next step, which was offer versus serve. And what they did there pretty much is they discovered that we were making kids take all the food back in the day, and they were throwing a lot of it away. So they came up with this program called offer versus serve. We're required to offer 5 components to a child for lunch. With offer versus serve, they only really need to take 3, 4, or 5. That was to keep them from throwing the food away that they didn't want, that we were making them take back then. Then something else happened. Finally in 2010, the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act. Very interesting. It came on like gangbusters. And unfortunately in this district, what happened was, at the same time this hit, our enrollment started to drop. And so what really happened there was the state and Fed came in with USDA and said, we're going to tell you how to feed your kids, and we're going to do all these healthy things. Now that's great. That's great. We all think that that's a good idea. The problem is they hit it at 2010, and it was all or nothing, and it came in like gangbusters, and the kids were not happy with what we did. The manufacturers were not up to date with what they could offer us to serve. We were trying to do scratch cooking still, not a lot of luck. And I did bring you some samples over that I'll get to and what we've done since. But pretty much the nutritional standards that are still enacted right now today are in front of you. This is what we do for breakfast. This is what we do for lunch based on the age of your child and the day of the week for that matter. As far as vegetables, we can't just do broccoli every day anymore. We can do a dark green one day a week. We can do a red orange carrots another day a week. We can do a legume another day a week. So there's a lot of really strict things that go into what we do. Very tough. So I kind of liken this to Apollo 13 when they had to figure out how to get the astronauts back safely. They threw it on the table and said, make it work. Didn't give us a lot to work with. Next
so Dave, these are the standards under the 2010 Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act, better known. That's from our illustrious former First Lady, correct?
Well, you can blame who you want, but she had a lot to do with promoting that. But again, it probably was in need of happening. I think the issue was that they pushed it very quickly, way too fast. And what happened was your younger kids coming through, they didn't know the difference, didn't really see a difference, but your older students went already from automatically from doing something that they really enjoyed to being forced to eat something that they didn't want. And so we started losing a lot of kids as a result. So it really was an ugly time. And again, the manufacturers were way behind, way behind. So last time I made this presentation, I said, what will we do? And we told you that. I'm going to tell you now what we've done and what's happened since I last met with you, which is about 3 years ago. Well, one of the things we can control to save money is, of course, labor. Labor is our #1 issue in our department. So at the time that back in 2010, we actually had 4 managers in 8 buildings, and we were rolling along. Now we're down to 6 buildings. We're down to 2 managers at this point. So we saved a little money there, and we did that through retirements, so it worked out real well. It didn't hurt anybody. That was good. We also created 6 positions in each building to help assist those managers because now they had more responsibility, but nowhere near the cost of what it would be to have those 2 extra managers there. So we took these senior food service helpers that are actually cooking in the schools. We gave them a little more responsibility, a little more time, and they're assisting those managers so that your students didn't lose any services at all. In other words, they shouldn't have seen a difference at all in the quality or the service that we offer. We also reduced the staff in the elementaries from 3 to 2, and that's why I have those trays in front of you. One of the things that is very traditional in our food service business is called warewash, where we wash plates and dishes and pots and pans. And the disposable industry has always been out there. We all know it. It started with the fast food restaurants. But boy, I'll tell you what, it is not a good scene. If anybody's ever seen any of the videos of the plastic that's floating in the oceans and seen some of those things, it's pretty disturbing. And I didn't want to be a part of that. So if you look, you have a styrofoam tray in front of you. That's what the industry said is the best way to, right there, that one. That's the way to go. That's inexpensive. You know, that's the price performer. That's what you should use. But you know, that polystyrene or styrofoam is in the environment forever. Forever. The chemicals used to make that, the petroleum used to make that, it's just not a good scene. And we didn't want to do that. So what we did was we found a new product. Next. To discontinue the warewash in the elementary, Galley Green is a product that's made by a company that came up with an innovative way to make it less expensive. There was a company that came up with a corn tray. The problem was that tray was so expensive. And then there were people saying, cheapers, you know, we're using food to make a tray where we should be using that food to feed people. This company came up with the idea of taking sugarcane leaves and making this tray that now is in front of you that's a little bit thicker. Now someone said it's edible. Maybe it is. I wouldn't eat it. But it certainly is made out of a renewable source that will biodegrade in the environment. That tray will go away. I think it's a better quality tray than that polystyrene. It's thicker, and it's easier for the kids to carry without it tipping over, flipping over, losing their lunch. Works out real well. And it's made of a biodegradable product. The cost of it is only 4 cents more than that polystyrene tray. So that those things are starting to get more and more prevalent in our supplies that we can buy, and it's something that we can afford to do, and we do it. And what we did was we just eliminated those extra positions in every elementary school, discontinued warewashing, put this tray in there. District saved some money, and it worked out real well. And I think it's a great product. Now, I was just talking to Andy earlier. There's also a couple in, I believe, somewhere in the Middle East that has invented edible flatware. I was watching something on that the other day. Pretty intriguing. And they claim they're going to be able to get the cost down to match plastic, which would be great if we could do that. The other thing that we did to save money, because really as far as the food, there's really not a lot we can do. The food's still got to come in. What we did was we took, and you were eating this today, we took our old-fashioned commodity system. I heard Jeff mention he got a piece of cheese. And when we think about commodities, and if you go back far enough, remember the cheese handouts back in the 50s and 60s. That's really where that program started. And really what that is you've got farmers that overproduce products, sold it to the government, it became a commodity food program, and then it was handed out to the poor. Nowadays it's much more sophisticated, and what they used to do was they would send us a ton of canned foods, a ton of frozen chicken, a ton of frozen beef, and we would have to have this stuff stored in the freezer. We would get it in as directors, and we'd say, all right, now what are we going to do with this? We're going to make a menu, we're going to use this stuff up. It was very difficult, and really the food coming in from the commodity program was driving our menus, and that was really the only way to do it. Now we're into what's called a net off invoice program. Very interesting. The USDA, the state and Fed are now giving us the authority to do what we want with the food that we can have. So we have an entitlement amount of money, about $100,000 in this district, and we can convert it into just about anything. So what we've done in the past and what you were eating today, for instance, that pizza, that's a buffalo chicken pizza made on a whole grain crust. The cheese and the chicken are all net off invoice products, reduces the cost of that product by about $8–9 a case. The chicken itself because kids today don't believe that the bones are in chicken. You've got your chicken patty, your chicken fingers, your chicken popcorn chicken, and your chicken nuggets. We can take all that food, produce it into that product, and they sell it to us at such a reduced rate. Saves a ton of money. When last February we left the Ed Center, we had a huge storm about half the size of this cafeteria, full of canned goods. When we were told we had to move, we had to readjust what we were going to do, and we went to the frozen fruits and vegetables, which is wonderful because that's much better than canned foods as far as I'm concerned. So we converted our product into frozen strawberry cups, peach cups, applesauce cups. So this really turned out really well. We're actually providing better products, better foods for our kids, using less space and using that commodity money towards things that kids want rather than what we force them to eat. So that really worked out well. And the last thing that we've done is the shared services, if you haven't heard about it. It's been around for a long, long time. When I started in '82, they were doing this down in the southern tier back then. If you listen, you hear that the city and the county of Onondaga, city of Syracuse, are trying to combine their services. What that simply means is one person doing more than one thing. And if it didn't flip over, and if you don't know it, I also work with APW. I'm an employee of Central Square, but I'm contracted out to APW School District to do the same exact thing I do here for you guys. And that has worked out really, really well. So the USS Smart Management is out fishing for more opportunities. We already have 2 districts in the net, and if we can get more districts to come aboard with us, this will also help our fiscal problems that we have. We're getting better every year. Things are looking very, very good for us. Does anybody have any questions?
Not a question. I'll just comment that one, thanks. You're doing a great job. I hear great things from students, including my kids, and the fact that sometimes their accounts are at a negative has nothing to do with this. But no, I think, like much in education, I think the deck is stacked against you. Like in any other industry, you are set up for failure, and in spite of that, you know, balance line it doesn't matter, and that sounds fiscally irresponsible. That's not the way I mean it. That's not the measure of your success. So you do incredible things with limited resources. I really appreciate it. I'm sure the board does. And P.S., you are incredibly highly regarded, and the services you provide to our sister district at APW as well. So thanks for it.
Well, thank you very much. What?
Yeah, you've been very creative, especially over the last 8 years with so many regulations have been put in place. You've been great in getting us more and more out of the red.
It's moving in that direction now. It took 8 years. It's moving in that direction. It was a struggle, you know, and it really, I have to give most of the credit to the people that work with me. It's not just me. It's everybody in this department, including Maureen in her business office also, and your patience to let us get there.
Dave, were you on Harry Truman's committee back in '46?
I was about 5 then, and
I echo those comments from those folks, so thank you.
I've seen a lot in 29 years, I'll tell you. It's amazing where this program's gone. You know, one thing I didn't see it coming, but it's important what we're doing, because you guys use the numbers that we generate to make decisions and to get your money. And that's something they didn't do years and years ago. And so at least we feel important, and we appreciate your support.
And Mr. Bartholomew has a privilege. I'm the second Tom Colapufo he's worked for.
I stopped saying that because you always made a face. I actually worked with his dad. He was a principal at Nottingham High School back when I was about 23 years old and got into this business. And so I met your dad, and I remember when I first met you, I said, your dad Tom too? Yeah, small world.
Serious question though, how big is the net?
How big is the net? How big can that net be? That's a great question, because when we were first given this opportunity, I started dreaming, and you know, that's what you got to do to keep going forward. You can't look backward. And we were talking, and kind of are talking to the county, where we could do all 9 districts if they wanted us to. There are some individuals that are doing 14, 15 districts. It's possible. And if that were the case, that certainly would solve all the fiscal problems in all the districts that are having this trouble.
Yeah, I was going to say, have you done the analytics on that possibility?
We have. We've been talking to Chris Todd about it. I don't know how far you want me to go in on something like that, but Chris Todd has approached Amy and myself to maybe go to work for them, but still work here and work in other districts. It's just a matter of those districts coming together and coming to an agreement on how that would work and what they would pay.
And the APW thing really happened based on retirement, right?
There was a retirement in
Right,
APW.
up in APW, right?
Yep, and there was a good relationship between the superintendents at the time, and that maybe Maureen could shed more light on how that idea came up.
They had a retirement. Basically, they said, look, can you afford it? We'll pay you $50,000. Absolutely. These three have such a great system set up that if a phone call comes in, it could be from an APW parent or whatnot, they've got it right down, business sense, nailed.
Yeah, a parent calling from anywhere doesn't know that they're calling APW or Central Square, so they feel that service. You know, we just changed the way you answer the phone, and Laura, we wouldn't be able to do it without her. She's just absolutely amazing. Anybody, you know, you think of Radar O'Reilly from the old MASH, she's Radar O'Reilly. She's unbelievable. She remembers anything you ever said, so, you know, be careful, Tim. You say it, she'll remember it 10 years from now. Pretty amazing. We thank you.
Tom and Mr. Bartholomew, if I've heard the remnants of the discussions about city and potentially, you know, having all the potential that's there, but isn't that then city making the revenue that the districts would then pay?
No, all I would be a management service to you, and you would still obtain your own RAs, your recipient agencies. So as a result, any money you made or didn't make would be still the responsibility of the district. What you would do is you'd be relieved of the cost of the director and the assistant director and the secretary in the district.
Which is the money from APW is what you're saying.
But right now that we're making money from APW.
Correct.
Correct. But so if you went and worked for city, then we would no longer.
But we're also paying their salary and benefits that it would literally, we get all the aid back on that and not.
Right, but if you're talking about having nine
schools
paying us $50,000 versus us giving you to city and letting city
Hey, if you
collect
could do that, I'm okay with that too.
But I just, I mean, is that something that we're considering? Because I feel like then we're just going to be paying, we're still going to be paying for those services.
Here's the deal. We really wouldn't have a choice because they would just say, all right, we're going to go through that and get the discount and get the aid back on that. And a lot of the other districts get a lot more aid even than we do with our WADA. So we wouldn't even be able to say, no, we're going to keep doing it our way, and all you other districts come through us and pay us 50 grand or whatnot. They would just, it really wouldn't even be a choice at our point because they would make them employees. Why would APW say, no, we're not going to do that, even though we can get 90-something% back on that? Why would they?
So they can't get aid on it right now, the way they're doing it?
No. Pretty much what it was the director was there, was making a salary and benefits, was costing them about $100,000 a year. They cut that in half 2 years ago, and we went in and we actually improved their program, improved their participation, made them very, very happy. The kids were, you know, very, very pleased with it. So everything was good about it, and I think that's the feedback you're getting. So that was a heck of a deal for them.
Right, but what I'm saying is if you were a city employee and they were paying city, that $50,000 would be aidable?
Yes.
Okay, as opposed to right now it's not.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm going to go off on a tangent here because Christy forced me to. No, so this is the beginning, and we're going to see more and more of it. It is our current governor, and it's a long-standing thing, but it is adding a middleman. So he's great on consolidation and reducing inefficiency, but we're forced to have our money go through the state, and then we become dependent on their pocketbooks to give us the aid back, when quite frankly, we're doing these things now. So it frustrates me to no end. This isn't directed at you, obviously, but we've started a good thing, and at some point, more and more services are going to be forced to go through that way. It's going to be a centralized administration, for lack of a better term, not your rule, but through city BOCES, and we'll have less and less authority to change it. So, sign of things to come, unfortunately.
Any other questions? Reagan?
Now, I will say, when we go to executive session, it's still a little bit off, but all of you, before you leave, feel free to take the rest of this food. It is delicious, but I'm a little bit stuffed.
Now, someone said they don't believe, or they couldn't believe we served that pizza here at the high school. I forget who said that, but we absolutely...
I didn't say I couldn't believe it, but I just said I hadn't seen it because my son buys just about every pizza, but he's in the elementary school, so...
We don't do all those things
right.
down there, but...
No, that's understood.
Yep. Too spicy for those kids, right?
Yeah, great, thank you.
Great job, thank you. Yeah, no, don't jump.
All right, we have no blue cards. We will not have the community open forum tonight. I make a motion that we approve the meetings of the January 2nd and January 29th board meetings. Can I get a second?
Second.
Mr. McCarthy, any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous. All right, Mr. Colabufo, anything on unfinished business that you want to provide an update on? And I'm just going to go through the list quick so that everyone knows. Any updates on policy committee for field trips after the third week in May, potential for transportation for UPK, trap shooting club, policy on cell phones on school buses. We can take policy 5661 off the list, and district contributions to clubs and activities, which was Edwards asked last night.
Rather than give you a breakdown and update on all of those, I'll just make it quick and simply say it's still unfinished because we're still getting information on all of them.
Yep. That is absolutely fine. So Pearl, if you could, though, take 5661 off the unfinished business that's on our docket for tonight. All right, board member reports. I'll start, so if anyone else has any, just queue them up. But I want to let you know that Mr. Loyer, Mr. Patch, Maureen, and Tom and I attended the City Legislative Forum on Saturday. So Central Square was very well represented. It was a pretty good conversation. Mr. Thank you, Barkley. Was there in attendance. Representative from Richie's office was there. And it was a good discussion. I mean, all of us spoke up on issues facing the district, and there's actually some pretty good movement and things happening. We brought up the issue with commercial driver's licenses that our bus drivers are facing, that Johnny Pierce had brought to our attention. So one of the things that happened is one of the people there is going to get a contact to Mr. Colabufo with a statewide organization that's going to help try to change that. And in addition, we actually have a local news station that is going to tomorrow do a story on it at the Transportation Center. So lobbying efforts are a major part of what the board can and should be doing, and so it's a great thing to have that participation. So thanks to everyone that was able to.
So is that speaking to the whole 90% of failing now versus used to be 10% or whatever? That's what you're speaking to?
Yep, and the fact that they're asked to be mechanics in addition to bus drivers, so yeah, so that was great.
Had Mr. Barkley heard this before, or was it new to him?
It was absolutely news to him, yeah, absolutely.
He was asked the question, was it a DMV or was it a state ed? So yeah, it was new.
And he got both barrels.
Yeah, he really did. Yeah. But took it, which was good.
He did a very good job at taking it, but we didn't cut any corners. We didn't sugarcoat it.
Yeah.
Did we?
Yep. Let's see, a couple things just to add to the list, I guess, for Mr. Colabufo and for the board to consider. I don't want it to necessarily, unless you have a burning desire to, be discussion tonight, because I know we're getting long already. But so our website, we kind of did a revamped website in September. We were told that the rest of it would be ready for October. Now we have a coaster through City BOCES, and I'm just calling out the fact that I'm frustrated with the lack of movement on that website. There's been very little change in the past 5-6 months. So I would ask that at the next meeting, Mr. Colabufo will be ready to give us an update from the city, because I don't think, frankly, the effort's been adequate for the fact that we're paying for a service. So.
Has there been much of a change? I haven't noticed much of a change on the website.
Well, they did some things. The contact, they actually put it where you could see it. But overall, I think it's because the person that we had went out on maternity, and they got the replacement. At first, it was because they were saying that we were spending a lot of time, their hours, because it's by hours, but it's like 256. I mean, it was days. I mean, it was a lot of time. And they were saying that all that was going to have Heather just come in to take the pictures, do all these things, where we're more streamlining this now, where it's going to come through my office with Pearl and basically say, okay, yes, do this, go here, go there. Because some situations we don't need her to come in to take these pictures, where we do need more time to be invested to the website, things that everybody is going to click on and see. I know that, and again, this is not on our arena or on our department, it's just on what we thought we were going to be getting, and I think, quite frankly, they didn't have what they needed on their end to look at websites and website design and those kind of things. But now I'm hearing that they do have people in-house to be able to do that. And so I'm hoping that we'll be able to see some changes. If you want to say anything else to this since you talked to them.
I have noticed a huge difference in terms of the Facebook page and like the updates being provided and things like that. But with respect to the website, I mean, it's in my phone now, but when I would look for the bus garage phone number to call to let them know my students weren't going to be on the bus, I couldn't find it on the district page. I would just Google Central Square Transportation Center and it would come right up on the first thing. So I mean, we shouldn't, our citizens shouldn't be resorting to Google, you know, to find basic phone numbers, schedule of events, things like that. So those are basic web design things. And have we paid for all these hours that nothing's been done? I mean, is there any kind of pushback happening? Is that like, is there an appeal process or?
It's the allocation of hours.
Right, but when.
But I've addressed that, and I said to cut back
on
all of those and spend more time on the website, but then she went out.
It's allocation, but it is also, I mean, so we were given a date, and that date is long since passed, right?
Right,
so
and
it's
when
under promise, over deliver.
You're purchasing a website revamp.
Yeah, that we didn't.
Is there a new shell?
Yeah. Oh, it looks totally different than how it did before.
Just so you know, a new shell is 15 minutes worth of work. No exaggeration.
It is, and there's a lot of complexity to it, I get it, but just my one example, and again, we should definitely schedule this as a discussion for the next meeting, is when you click on planning for the future, you still pull up a document from 2012. That speaks to the issue we have with our website, right? And again, I'm not pinning anyone under it, it just has to be addressed.
And I hear you, but part of that is they can only change what they know. So Arena has spent so much time, and myself and Pearl, letting her know of all these changes, but then it has been a massive amount of time in the one-to-one Chromebook. And what we see right now is teachers are like, wow, this is amazing. What Arena has come in with her team to set this up, to send everybody over there to do that. This is just a fraction of the amount of time it took to plan all of this with that company. So there's no doubt about it at all that certain attentions to getting rid of all the stuff that doesn't make sense on the website has kind of taken a little bit of a back seat for a couple reasons. One, Heather went out on her maternity leave, but also because our focus has been this massive one-to-one initiative. But we are on it.
So the next meeting, just give us update, whatever city's plan is, but obviously someone goes out, we pay for service, so someone else must be covering it. So just whatever that plan is, when should we expect to see changes in the website? That's all.
Okay.
So we can properly set it. In addition, we had a request from the board, and so unless there's objection from the board, to have an update at our next meeting on the restructuring of the guidance/counseling department. And we talked about it last year. I actually think that presentation was before our newest board members were on. So is there any issue with having that at the next board meeting? Which is, okay, 3 weeks from tonight. And final one for me, just food for thought. In talking to districts in other areas of the state, so it's my understanding we don't currently have someone that is dedicated through a COSER or otherwise to grant writing. Is that correct? So I would love for some options to be presented to the board for that to happen. I think there are dollars out there that we're missing out on just because we don't have the ability to dedicate someone to get those, and grant writing is one of those deals that, farm it out, they get paid.
It would have been $8 million if they didn't put up those illegal tourist signs available.
Plus the $14 million they're withholding this year, yes.
Right. Then you just ignore what you're told.
That's all I have. Anything else from the board? Excellent. I am not skipping this time then the superintendent's report.
Really short. Here we go. Congratulations to the performing members of the Central Square Regiment, Red Hawk Regiment Varsity Winter Guard. On February 3rd, they traveled to compete in the WGA Albany Regional Color Guard Competition. They placed second in the prelims and then second in the finals. Great job. Good news from athletics. Boys indoor track are league champions. Boys basketball are tied for first place, ranked 5th in big school division. Record is 13-2. Girls basketball 11-4, and they're ranked 6th. Wrestling had 10 students qualify for sectionals that this weekend at OCC. Cheerleaders took second place out of 12 teams this past weekend at CNS Invitational. That's it.
All right, give me 1 second. Okay, good. All right. Sorry. That's a great point. Did you want to table till the next meeting?
No, I can say, just so it's a talking point and what we're going to do for the next one. I can totally do that. Yeah, what I wanted to just, again, mention, I kind of had brought this up with the board, is the opportunity to be able to employ 2 school resource officers. This just more is just a talking point. We're looking to have the resolution put on the next board packet. We have information for each of the board members to actually show how the process takes place. For cost effectiveness, it's phenomenal. What we are actually looking to do is to employ 2. Each one is $40,000. And again, the great part about that is they are able to, when you talk about safety and you talk about, having a first responder on the scene, every minute is really, really important. They are also allowed to carry a weapon. They're trained. They've had a career as in police enforcement and school resource officers. So basically, what I have been starting the conversation with Ken Sherman, the mayor, is so it would be very similar to how the Phoenix School District has worked together in a partnership with the Phoenix Police Department. That was all orchestrated by a local police officer here, Mike McCarthy, who went and did all of this. Mike McCarthy runs the SRO, the securities for all of Liverpool High School. He's also the one that trains all SROs in the state of New York. So that's a 1-week-long process, which he is totally able to do when we decide who we're going to go with. What I would like to do is I would like to have some committee members be a part of that interviewing and vetting process. I would like to have Mike McCarthy be a part of this because he did such a great job at Phoenix, but also Ken Sherman would have to play a role in this because it would be that partnership. So essentially what it would be is that Central Square Police Department would technically be employing these officers, and we would be paying the $40,000 and no benefits. They wouldn't need benefits because they're retired. And the title for this in civil service, this specific title actually does not have a salary cap. So it does not impact their retirement. So what we would be able to do is increase security immensely. The goal would be to place one at the high school and one at the middle school. Now the one at the middle school doesn't have the jurisdiction to make actual arrests, but they do have the jurisdiction to do everything an SRO would do there. So if there was an emergency, they can act just like the SRO here at the high school that's in the jurisdiction. But the only difference there is the charging and all of that would be through the local municipalities, which is not a problem at all for everything that we're looking to do. So this is the best way is to replicate exactly how they did at Phoenix. It would be a great opportunity for the district. The district had an SRO back in the day. I've heard nothing but wonderful things when we had that. Again, the fact that we could pick up for $80,000 and no benefits 2 highly qualified school resource officers.
For the record, that's no relation to Tim McCarthy, just so everybody's aware of that. If you could,
he appreciates that clarification too.
if you could, when you come, Tom, the benefit costs, I was going to ask that. Are there any legacy costs? Because a lot of times with those, make sure there's no legacy costs. Summertime, they're not working, obviously.
Part-time, so it'll be 10 months, right?
Okay. And years ago, there was grant money out there. That stopped at one point in time, if those of you that have been on the board a while recollect. So there's been some talk that we got rid of it. We really didn't get rid of it. We just, it was grant money, that went away, and we just, that conversation ended, just for the record. So, thank you.
Great, so the expectation is those will be on the packet at our next meeting. So the board, we have 3 weeks between meetings, but we have questions, need information, we have plenty of time.
Yeah, and I have the information work, so the information that you can actually see how Phoenix did it, what the title is called, and then what the process that we would do. We just want to establish these positions before we go about and do that. Right?
This is a stretch, but could that SRO help with the busing in the middle school as far as traffic control?
That is a great question. I'm going to say no. It's
We
out
were
of
told
their
no years.
jurisdiction.
We were told
So,
no years ago.
Right. They could do it here because it's in their jurisdiction. It's in the village. But when it comes to the traffic flow, what we are looking at right now is Paul had checked with King that was going to check with the DOT to see if we can have the 2 exit lanes. One you must go left and one go right. I don't know if we got a response yet, but okay. If we can just follow up with them and see, because that in itself would save a lot of time of exiting. Right. Yep.
All right, any other discussion on that?
Just a point of clarification, the next meeting is 3 weeks away, not 2.
Yes, February 26th, yep. Can I get a motion to accept all of item F? Mr. McCarthy, second.
Second.
Mr. Buddy, sorry. Any discussion on F?
Yes. I'd like to talk about F4.
F?
The leasing of the
For approval of equipment
2008.
lease.
Yep. I asked for some information, and I just want to know, since Paul, you're here, right? Did you talk with Kevin Davis, superintendent from West Monroe? Okay. When this came up, I didn't know. I wanted to get some information as far as the type of plow truck, right? What you currently have been plowing with was a leftover 10-wheeler from town of Hastings, right? So when I called him up, I talked to both Kevin, who's the highway supervisor for the town of West Monroe, and I also talked with Dennis Hyde, who is the head mechanic for the town of West Monroe. And 2 things came up, is that one is that they've had some issues with the internationals, with wiring. They're seeing a lot of them come up on state sales used, a little bit more than other 6-wheelers have that come from the mechanic. And then Kevin Davis said that what he's gone into to his town is that they're getting the Ford 450s and 550s, right? They're a little bit smaller. You don't need the CDL. They put a 9-foot plow on the front of them, and they can really push some snow. The cost is a lot cheaper, and he's had great success with it and plowed the roads with it. So I didn't know. Okay, do you plow with 2 people with a wing, or just 1? Okay, so, and then I asked, is the, for the line sheet, have we talked with the bus, who does the maintenance? So, what do you think about the truck? Are you okay with the motor and all that? Okay, and you built this one too? Did you build this one? Put the line sheet for this one? Okay. You're happy with it? Okay. I'm done. I'm good.
Since you're still there, can you just explain exactly why we're doing it? Because, just in case there's people watching this later, just explaining why we're purchasing it. I should have used the mic, probably. Can you use the mic, too?
Okay, a couple reasons. First off, to try to find a used vehicle that's in good condition is very difficult. So we have a lot of trouble finding them. So that's one of the biggest things. That's why we ended up with a 10-wheeler. We really didn't want a 10-wheeler, but there was nothing out there, so we could not purchase anything less than that. Another piece of that is this summer we're going to put all new blacktop on many of our schools. We're going to have all brand new blacktop. So we're going to take a 10-wheeler with a huge sander on the back, which is too big for what we're going to do. We're going to jeopardize the blacktop, and I don't want to do that. I want to make sure that this is the perfect time. We get down to a little bit smaller truck. It's not quite as heavy. It'll be a little easier on the new blacktop we're putting in, and that's basically this timing.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? Any other questions? If anyone wants to come down and when we get it, run the wing a little bit, we're more than happy to show you how to take it for a ride.
I'm in, but up the insurance. Any other discussion on F? Being none,
I'd just like to make a comment on I think this, I don't really know what it is, but it's pretty awesome. The unified basketball team. This is going to be pretty good stuff, so.
Agreed, and can't wait for a report in after the season. That'll be awesome. All those in favor of F? It's unanimous. Can I get a motion for G?
I'll make a motion to accept G in its entirety.
I'll second it.
Item G, any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you.
I'll make a motion to accept H in its entirety.
I'll second it.
H, Mr. McCarthy, second by Mr. Bedworth. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? Excellent, thank you. I do want to back up, don't worry, and mention the board in item, I believe it was G. Sorry, give me a second. Or was it F? In item F, we passed a resolution this evening. We did not read it out loud, but it'll be posted with the board packet. And it's, again, part of our lobbying efforts to the DMV for CDL regulations. That resolution is now being forwarded to the New York State School Board Association, and their intent is to use that as a draft for a statewide campaign. So, way to be trailblazers, Central Square.
Let's really stay on that, because that's what we heard the other night is absurd.
It really is. So. It is a frustration. I hereby make a motion that the Central Square School District Board of Education move into executive session to discuss negotiations conducted pursuant to the Taylor Law involving the non-instructional unit. The board will be inviting Mark Pettit into our executive session for that portion. Also to discuss the matters leading to the discipline of 2 particular people, and to discuss the mid-year superintendent evaluation, and that part of the executive session will be held in boardroom 1309 with no action to follow. Can I get a second? Second. Mr. Loy, any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you, staff. There's no need to hang out since there's nothing to happen.